Campaign 04, the Democratic National Convention. From the Fleet Center in Boston, here is Dan Rather.
Good evening from the home of the Celtics, the Bruins, and this week the Democrats. Democratic delegates from all over America have come here to this hall to officially nominate and celebrate the man they hope will be elected the next president of the United States. John Kerry, the 60-year-old four-term United States Senator from Massachusetts, decorated, wounded in combat veteran of Vietnam. Coming into this convention, national polls, for whatever, if anything, they may be worth, indicate Kerry and the Republican incumbent, President George Bush, are running pretty much neck and neck. Senator Kerry hopes he will leave this convention with some kind of clear lead as speaker after speaker takes to the podium to talk about what they see as Senator Kerry's optimism and his strength. The featured speaker this first night is former President of the United States, Bill Clinton. He'll be introduced by his wife, the former First Lady, now United States Senator from New York, Hillary Clinton. This is the first major party convention since the attack on America, September 11th, 2001. And coming up very soon, this convention will focus on what happened that day, pause to remember the victims, and hear from, among others, a woman who lost her daughter and son-in-law. Our CBS News convention team this week includes Chief White House correspondent John Roberts, who will be reporting from the podium. John?
And Dan, this is where it's all going to happen this week, on this incredibly high-tech, elaborate stage that the Democrats have put out here with its flat-screen television sets and its 90-foot-long video screen, making sure that not a delegate in the House doesn't see what's going on here. Now, really, the goals of this convention are twofold. They want to energize the 4,352 voting delegates in this room, get them to go back to their home districts and sell John Kerry. And they're also looking via television to get a hold of that ever-shrinking population of undecided swing voters who either don't know John Kerry, don't like him, or haven't warmed up to him yet, to try to bring them over to the Democratic side. The mantra going into this, Dan, was supposed to be accentuate the positive, really downplay the negative. Don't talk too much about President Bush, talk more about John Kerry. But so far, in speeches from Al Gore and Jimmy Carter, Dan, the Democrats certainly have been going negative for their fair share of the time.
John Roberts on the podium. Now, front and center on the podium, the Democrats are starting a memorial they are calling a 9/11 moment.
All the people of America.
Delegates, alternates, honored guests, the convention will be in order for a special presentation. Please be in order. Delegates, please clear the aisles and take seats. Please welcome back to the podium Glenn Close.
This is the first national political convention since 9/11. As we gather here tonight in this hall and in our homes, let us vow never to forget that terrible day. Never to forget that it was a particularly beautiful morning. Otherwise, there was nothing ordinary, nothing out of the ordinary. Everyone was going on about their lives. It was just another day. Never to forget, coming out of that crystal sky, the unspeakable horror, the disbelief, the shock. Never to forget how we clung to each other and wept as the towers fell. How armies of selfless people of all ages, all cultures, all faiths, all colors, spontaneously poured forth to help, not only from the wounded city, but from across the entire country. And they kept coming. Before we knew all the numbers and the names and the countless dead. Never to forget the silence, the vigils, the flowers, the walls and fences covered with fluttering letters and poems and laments and thousands of pictures. To never forget that those who lost their lives were all our brothers and sisters. We find ourselves together at this moment in history. In one way or another, we are all survivors of 9/11. Our cities, our towns, our society, our souls have been changed forever. How we respond, how our political system survives this test, how human dignity and human liberty are nurtured and protected not only on these shores but across our entire planet will be the great test of this generation. It all began on an ordinary, cloudless day. We will never forget.
My name is Halima Saleh. On September 11, I lost my daughter Rama, my son-in-law Mickey, and my unborn grandchild on American Airlines Flight 11. Those we lost that day were husbands and wives, children, neighbors, and friends. We thought we would have them longer. We thought we had more time. As the families, we stood in clothes of mourning and wiped our children's tears. The whole country grieved with us, and we leaned on their support. In our grief and its ground-shattering aftermath, we truly understood that as Americans, everything had changed. And we will not have the luxury of time and innocence again. Tonight, I come here to ask that you never forget our loved ones, to remember that they were people, exactly like you and me, each with their own story. Dignity asks that you give them a human face. And then, I want to ask that you remember September 11 as the day we were one. It was the day we acted as if we were responsible for each other. Human life was valued above all else. It was and must remain the defining moment that reminds us what unites us is stronger than what divides us. For the sake of those innocent souls we lost, and for the soul of our country, life moves forward as it must. We bring our memories, but we turn our faces towards the future, toward our children, toward the ongoing stream of life. Now, as we turn our faces toward a new day and a new world, the strength of who we were on 9/11 should stay with us, a light in the darkness, to show us the way. Thank you.
Lest we forget, Halima Salih, quote, remember September 11th as the day we were one.
Ladies and gentlemen,
We'll be back
that
after these
moving
messages.
Performance was given by Gabe Lefkowitz, a 16-year-old.
Something happened to us on that mission, and it's not what we thought it was.
The movie event of the summer is coming. Newsweek raves The Manchurian Candidate plunges us and a terrific cast into a global power struggle. David Anson calls it a gourmet popcorn movie, a hugely entertaining thriller.
Somebody got into our heads.
2 thumbs up, and Roger Ebert raves the twist at the end will keep you guessing.
Help me or shoot me.
The Manchurian Candidate, rated R, starts Friday, only in theaters.
If you're one of the millions of Americans who's searching for a way to get back into the rhythm of life, maybe it's time you ask your doctor about Ambien, or call toll-free 1-877-9-AMBIEN.
We know that Senecot, with its natural vegetable laxative ingredient, has been hard to find. Well, your wait is over. Senecot, with the laxative ingredient proven to be effective in 50 clinical studies, now in stores everywhere.
Oh, my back.
Need some help?
Yeah.
Try my Bayer Back and Body.
Thanks, hon.
It's Bayer Aspirin plus a special pain relief booster. It works right where it hurts. Bayer Back and Body. Get moving again. Pain-free.
Break up the full feeling of indigestion and pain with Alka-Seltzer.
There's something great going around. Something so delicious, people can't get enough of it. It's these reclosable bottles of Ensure. They're great tasting and go anywhere and everywhere you do to give you a good source of complete balanced nutrition to help you stay healthy. Enjoy Ensure as a snack or occasional meal in 5 creamy, rich flavors. Ensure in reclosable bottles. Drink to your health wherever you go.
Tonight on an all-new Late Show, a visit to the Democratic Convention. Then,
go for the gold.
The Olympic synchronized swim team on 53rd Street. Plus, Holly Hunter and the top 10 signs your convention speech is boring.
Teresa Heinz Carey gets a standing ovation when she tells you to shove it.
Tonight, then catch Craig.
In Russia, the teams encounter some traditions that are a little hard to swallow.
Dude, I can't believe how quick you're getting through that.
Who will have the stomach to win? The new Amazing Race, CBS Tuesday.
The last time Al Gore addressed a Democratic convention 4 years ago, it was to accept the presidential nomination. Earlier this evening, former Vice President Gore addressed this convention in a different role as staunch party supporter and cheerleader.
To those of you who felt disappointed or angry with the outcome in 2000, I want you to remember all of those feelings. But then I want you to do with them what I have done. Focus them fully and completely on putting John Kerry and John Edwards in the White House in 2004 so we can have a new direction in America, a new president, a new vice president, new policies, a new day, a brighter future, what this country and what our people deserve.
Former Vice President Al Gore speaking a short while ago to this convention. Know who has the best seats down there, closest to the podium? It's the delegates from the so-called battleground states, the states that may very well decide the election. CBS News correspondent Jim Axelrod is down there among the premium seats. Jim?
Well, Dan, there's not an unscripted moment or an uncalculated decision within 3 zip codes of the convention floor. And by taking a look at how the 4,300 plus delegates are dispersed around the floor of the Fleet Center, you get a little bit of an indication as to what party strategy is going to be come this fall. And I'm not just talking about Massachusetts, which has the seats right in front of the podium, as you might imagine, the home state at the top of the ticket, nor North Carolina, which got a late upgrade due to their senior senator being added to the ticket as well. It's maybe more telling what you see to the left of North Carolina, where Pennsylvania's delegation is sat, or perhaps the mirror image on the other side of the hall where Ohio's delegation is sat. These are battleground states. Maybe nothing is more telling at all than where I'm standing in the middle of Florida. Florida has about 25 rows back directly in front of the podium, maybe the best seats in the House. And of course, that's not random either. Look, the party officials understand 2 things. First of all, they have to reach undecideds through television sets across the country. But they also need to build an army of retail politicians. They need these delegates energized so that they can go home and begin to work the vote. The undecideds, of course, critically important. And these people, these delegates here, are going to be the key to getting undecideds out. These states, Florida, Pennsylvania, Ohio, their delegates are getting maybe the best seats in the House because they need to be, those are the most important states for people to go back and work votes for. So no decision here on the floor the last week of July is being made anything other than through the prism of the first week in November. Dan?
Jim Axelrod reporting live from the floor with a reminder, a lot of people think this next election will be decided along a line of Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, possibly adding in Missouri and Florida. Of course, this early on, it's all speculation. Senator Kerry will be here in the convention hall on Thursday to officially accept the nomination. Until then, he is out campaigning. CBS News correspondent Byron Pitts is with him tonight in Norfolk, Virginia. Byron?
Well, then, tonight in rainy Norfolk, Virginia, Senator Kerry is in his hotel room watching the convention, working on his Thursday night acceptance speech. Dan, as you know, Norfolk is a military town, so Senator Kerry came here to highlight the point that he was in the Navy during Vietnam. He also hopes here to emphasize his record in the military. This trip to Virginia is his 6th stop in a battleground state in the past 4 days, all part of the slow march to Boston. In each state, he's emphasized a different portion of the John Kerry message. Themes like health care, jobs, John Kerry, the war hero. All points he hopes to tie together when he makes his all-important acceptance speech in Boston Thursday night. Sources tell us the speech will run about 50 minutes long. He will talk about his family, his faith, his vision for America. We're also told that the mood will be upbeat as the senator tries to stay positive. He will only mention President Bush by name very few times. For all accounts, this is the most important speech in John Kerry's life, and no one knows that better than John Kerry. Dan?
Byron Pitts reporting from Norfolk, Virginia. Thanks. Our CBS News live coverage of the Democratic National Convention rolls on from Boston. Up shortly, the Clintons, both. So stay here with us.
New York. CBS Wednesdays this fall.
Back now at the Democratic Convention in Boston, one of the rising stars of the Democratic Party is Illinois State Senator Barack Obama, now running for the United States Senate. Senator Obama, 42 years old, has been selected to deliver the keynote address tomorrow. I spoke with him this evening and asked him what points he hopes to get across here.
What I'd like to focus on is that there are a core set of democratic values that are American values. The belief that every child in America should have an opportunity in life. The belief that when people hit a bump on the road, somebody's there to give them a hand up. And what I'd like to do is show how we adapt those values to new circumstances, and that John Kerry and John Edwards present our best hope for renewing those values as we move into the future.
You know, the other day, President Bush, in speaking before the Urban League, questioned whether African Americans had been too loyal to the Democratic Party, getting too little out of it. Isn't there, or is there something to that argument?
Well, you know, what I certainly think is that the Republican Party should make attempts to compete for African American voters. But, you know, you've got to walk the walk and not just talk the talk. I think the reason that African Americans have responded to the Democrats and not the Republicans is that the Republican Party hasn't really offered much for working families who are struggling. And African American families, although some are doing extraordinarily well, are disproportionately represented in those groups of the uninsured, the undereducated, the people who lack opportunity. There hasn't been much in the Republican agenda that would speak to that.
Well, Governor Bill Richardson of New Mexico is introducing Hillary Clinton. Let's go to the podium.
Military on the Armed Services Committee for the men and women who served and for fair treatment of our veterans. I am honored to present the junior senator from New York State and a great Democrat, Hillary Rodham Clinton.
country needed new leadership. Americans selected a Democrat who gave us 8 years of peace, prosperity, and promise. Tonight, I have the pleasure of introducing the last great Democratic president. But first, I want to say a few words about the next great Democratic president, John Kerry. You know, I, like all of you, just heard the moving testimonials about the horrors of September the 11th and the extraordinary witnessing by Reverend Alston concerning his lieutenant, John Kerry. I don't know how any American could hear the Reverend Alston and not know John Kerry is the man we need to be our president and commander-in-chief. And yet, we meet at a moment of great peril, but also of great promise for the country we love. Together, we can, once again, widen the circle of opportunity for all Americans. We can, once again, transcend our differences and divisions. We can, once again, give our children a safer and more secure future. That is the promise of America, and John Kerry will renew and keep that promise to this generation and generations to come. He knows very well that you have to lead the world, not alienate it. He will lower the deficit, not raise it. He will create good jobs, not lose them. And he will solve a health care crisis for our people, not ignore it. Now, I know a thing or two about health care. And I know that the problems have only gotten worse in the last 4 years. We need to rededicate ourselves to the task of providing health care coverage for the 44 million Americans who don't have it. And we have to do more to lower the costs for all the rest of Americans who are facing increasing health care insurance premiums and drug prices. We also need to lift the ban on stem cell research and find cures that will help millions of Americans. You know, healthcare is a serious issue, and it requires serious solutions. And that's what John Kerry is good at, and that's what he will give us. He will also give us something else. A great vice president by the name of John Edwards. Now, you know that John Edwards is smart, he's energetic, and he's empathetic. And he understands the challenges that hardworking Americans face in their daily lives. Americans will be proud to have the Kerry Edwards team in the White House, and they will be proud, as we all will be, to have their extraordinary partners, Teresa Heinz Kerry and Elizabeth Edwards, working for our country as well. You know, we've been through our share of challenges as Americans, you know, from a civil war to a Great Depression to world wars and so much more. But being a senator from New York, I saw firsthand as all of my friends and colleagues did, the devastation of September the 11th. I visited Ground Zero the day after we were attacked, and I felt like I was standing at the gates of hell. I hope no American ever has to witness a horrible sight like that ever again. And yet, that tragedy both changed and challenged us. I know it did for me. And every day now, as a mother, as a senator, as an American, I worry about whether we are acting as wisely as we can to protect our country and our people. Last week, the bipartisan 9/11 Commission issued its report, and that commission would never have been in existence had it not been for the brave family members who insisted that this government have a commission to look into 9/11. And those commissioners issued a sober call to action that we ignore at our peril. John Kerry understands what's at stake when it comes to our security. We need to fully equip and train our firefighters, our police officers, and our emergency medical technicians. They are our first responders in the event of a terrorist attack, and we need to secure our borders, our rail lines, and our ports, as well as our chemical and nuclear plants. We need to reorganize our federal government to meet the new threats of these times. And we need to make sure that Homeland Security is a priority, and that it is funded properly, and that the resources go to the areas of greatest risk, like New York City. And along with that, we need to take care of our men and women in uniform who, like John Kerry, risked their lives and for too many lost their lives in service to our country. These brave Americans deserve better. We need to increase our troop strength. We need to raise their pay. We need to provide our veterans, our National Guard and Reserve, with the benefits they are entitled to for the service and duty they perform for our nation. And do you know what we need to meet these challenges? We need a new commander-in-chief named John Kerry. I've been saying for many months now, John Kerry is a serious man for a serious job in a serious time in our country's history. So let's join together, not just those of us in this great hall tonight, but throughout our nation, and do everything we possibly can to convince our fellow Americans to look to the future, to look deep inside themselves. They know what is best for our children. And if we just have the courage to act on our conviction, we will, by an overwhelming majority, send John Kerry and John Edwards to do their duty for us in the White House starting next year. I am very optimistic about this election because I think I know a great leader when I see one. And so does America. In 1992 and 1996, Americans chose a president who left our country in better shape than when he took office. And he still spends his days working to empower the powerless, to promote racial, religious, and ethnic reconciliation, to inspire young people to citizen service, and to bring life-saving medicines to people living with HIV/AIDS throughout the world. He showed Democrats how to win again, and so will John Kerry. Please welcome the 42nd President of the United States, Bill Clinton.
Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Calm down. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to be here with you. To share this podium with my Senator, Hillary Rodham Clinton. And I want to thank the people of New York for giving the best public servant in my family a chance to continue serving the public. Thank you. I'm going to say that again in case you didn't hear it. I'm honored to be here tonight, and I want to thank the people of New York for giving Hillary the chance to continue to serve in public life. I am very proud of her, and we are both very grateful to all of you, especially my good friends from Arkansas, for giving me the chance to serve in the White House for 8 years. I am honored to share this night with President Carter, for whom I worked in 1976 and who has inspired the world with his work for peace, democracy, and human rights. I am honored to share it with Al Gore, my friend and my partner for 8 years, who played such a large role in building the prosperity and peace that we left America in 2000. And Al Gore, as he showed again tonight, demonstrated incredible patriotism and grace under pressure. He is the living embodiment of the principle that every vote counts, and this year we're going to make sure they're all counted in every state in America. My friends, after 3 conventions as a candidate or a president, tonight I come to you as a citizen, returning to the role that I have played for most of my life, as a foot soldier in our fight for the future, as we nominate in Boston a true New England patriot for president. Now this state, who gave us in other times of challenge John Adams and John Kennedy, has given us John Kerry, a good man, a great senator, a visionary leader. And we are all here to do what we can to make him the next president of the United States. My friends, we are constantly being told that America is deeply divided. But all Americans value freedom and faith and family. We all honor the service and sacrifice of our men and women in uniform in Iraq, Afghanistan, and throughout the world. We all want good jobs, good schools, health care, safe streets, a clean environment. We all want our children to grow up in a secure America, leading the world toward a peaceful and prosperous future. Our differences are in how we can best achieve these things in a time of unprecedented change. Therefore, we Democrats will bring to the American people this year a positive campaign, arguing not who's a good or a bad person, but what is the best way to build a safe and prosperous world our children deserve. The 21st century is marked by serious security threats, serious economic challenges, and serious problems, from AIDS to global warming to the continuing turmoil in the Middle East. But it is also full of amazing opportunities to create millions of new jobs in clean energy and biotechnology, to restore our manufacturing base and reap the benefits of the global economy through our diversity and our commitment to decent labor and environmental standards for people all across the world. And to create a world where we can celebrate our religious, our racial, our ethnic, our tribal differences, because our common humanity matters most of all. To build that kind of world, we must make the right choices. And we must have a president who will lead the way. Democrats and Republicans have very different and deeply felt ideas about what choices we should make. They're rooted in fundamentally different views of how we should meet our common challenges at home and how we should play our role in the world. We Democrats want to build a world and an America of shared responsibilities and shared benefits. We want a world with more global cooperation where we act alone only when we absolutely have to. We think the role of government should be to give people the tools and to create the conditions to make the most of their own lives, and we think everybody should have that chance. On the other hand, the Republicans in Washington believe that America should be run by the right people, their people. In a world in which America acts unilaterally when we can and cooperates when we have to. They believe the role of government is to concentrate wealth and power in the hands of those who embrace their economic, political, and social views, leaving ordinary citizens to fend for themselves on important matters like health care and retirement security. Now, since most Americans aren't that far to the right, our friends have to portray us Democrats as simply unacceptable, lacking in strength and values. In other words, they need a divided America, but we don't. Americans long to be united. After 9/11, we all just wanted to be one nation. Not a single American on September the 12th, 2001 cared who won the next presidential election. All we wanted to do was to be one country, strong in the fight against terror, helping to heal those who were wounded and the families of those who lost their loved ones, reaching out to the rest of the world so we could meet these new challenges and go on with our democratic way of life. The president had an amazing opportunity to bring the country together under his slogan of compassionate conservatism and to unite the world in the struggle against terror. Instead, he and his congressional allies made a very different choice. They chose to use that moment of unity to try to push the country too far to the right and to walk away from our allies, not only in attacking Iraq before the weapons inspectors had finished their work, but in withdrawing American support for the Climate Change Treaty and for the International Court on War Criminals and from the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty and from the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. Now, at a time when we're trying to get other people to give up nuclear and biological and chemical weapons, they are trying to develop 2 new nuclear weapons, which they say we might use first. At home, the President and the Republican Congress have made equally fateful choices, which they also deeply believe in. For the first time, when America was on a war footing in our whole history, they gave 2 huge tax cuts, nearly half of which went to the top 1% of us. Now, I'm in that group for the first time in my life. And you might remember that when I was in office, on occasion, the Republicans were kind of mean to me. But as soon as I got out and made money, I became part of the most important group in the world to them. It was amazing. I never thought I'd be so well cared for by the President and the Republicans in Congress. I almost sent them a thank you note for my tax cuts until I realized that the rest of you were paying the bill for it, and then I thought better of it. Now, look at the choices they made. Choices they believed in. They chose to protect my tax cut at all costs, while withholding promised funding for the Leave No Child Behind Act, leaving 2.1 million children behind. While they chose to protect my tax cut, while cutting 140,000 unemployed workers out of their job training programs, 100,000 working families out of their child care assistance, and worst of all, while cutting 300,000 poor children out of their after-school programs when we know it keeps them off the streets, out of trouble, in school, learning, going to college, and having a good life. They chose to protect my tax cuts while dramatically raising the out-of-pocket costs of health care to our veterans, and while weakening or reversing very important environmental measures that Al Gore and I put into place, everything from clean air to the protection of our forests. Now, in this time, everyone in America had to sacrifice except the wealthiest Americans. And most of us, almost all of us, from Republicans to independents and Democrats, we wanted to be asked to do our part too. But all they asked us to do was to expend the energy necessary to open the envelopes containing our tax cuts. Now, if you like these choices and you agree with them, you should vote to return them to the White House and the Congress. If not, take a look at John Kerry, John Edwards, and the Democrats. We've got a different economic policy. In this year's budget, the White House this year wants to cut off all the federal funding for 88,000 uniformed police officers under the COPS program we've had for 10 years. Among those 88,000 police are more than 700 members of the New York Police Department who put their lives on the line on 9/11. With gang violence rising, and with all of us looking for terrorists in our midst and hoping they're not too well armed or too dangerous, the President and the Congress are about to allow the 10-year-old ban on deadly assault weapons to lapse. Now, they believe it's the right thing to do. But our policy was to put more police on the street and to take assault weapons off the street. And it gave you 8 years of declining crime and 8 years of declining violence. Their policy is the reverse. They're taking police off the streets while they put assault weapons back on the street. Now, if you agree with that choice, by all means, vote to keep them in office. But if you don't, join John Kerry, John Edwards, and the Democrats in making America safer, smarter, and stronger again. On Homeland Security, Democrats tried to double the number of containers at ports and airports checked for weapons of mass destruction. It cost $1 billion. It would have been paid for under our bill by asking the 200,000 millionaires in America to cut their tax cut by $5,000. Almost all 200,000 of us would like to have done that, to spend $5,000 to make all 300 million Americans safer. The measure failed. Why? Because the White House and the Republican leadership in the House of Representatives opposed it. They thought our $5,000 was more important than doubling the container checks at our ports and airports. If you agree with that, by all means re-elect them. If not, John Kerry and John Edwards are your team for the future. These policies have turned a projected $5.8 trillion surplus that we left, enough to pay for the baby boomer retirement, into a projected debt of almost $5 trillion, with over $400 billion in deficit this year and for years to come. Now, how do they pay for that deficit? First, by taking the Social Security surplus that comes in every month and endorsing the checks of working people over to me to pay for the tax cut. But it's not enough. So then they have to go borrow money. Most of it they borrow from the Chinese and the Japanese government. Sure, these countries are competing with us for good jobs, but how can we enforce our trade laws against our bankers? I mean, come on. So, if you believe it is good policy, if you believe it is good policy to pay for my tax cuts with the Social Security checks of working men and women and borrowed money from China and Japan, you should vote for them. If not, John Kerry's your man. We Americans must choose for president. We've got to choose for president between two strong men who both love their country, but who have very different worldviews. Our nominee, John Kerry, who favors shared responsibility, shared opportunity, and more global cooperation. And their president and their party in Congress, who favor concentrated wealth and power, leaving people to fend for themselves, and more unilateral action. I think we're right for two reasons. First of all, America just works better when more people have a chance to live their dreams. And secondly, we live in an interdependent world in which we cannot possibly kill, jail, or occupy all our potential adversaries. So we have to both fight terror and build a world with more partners and fewer terrorists. Now, we tried it their way for 12 years. We tried it their way for 12 years. We tried it our way for 8 years. Then we tried it their way for 4 more. But the only test that matters, whether people were better off when we finished than when we started, our way works better. It produced over 22 million good jobs, rising incomes for the middle class, over 100 times as many people moved from poverty into the middle class, more health care, the largest increase in college aid in 50 years, record home ownership, a cleaner environment, 3 surpluses in a row, a modernized defense force, strong efforts against terror, and a respected America in the world. It worked better. More importantly, we have great new champions in John Kerry and John Edwards. 2 good men with wonderful wives. Teresa, a generous and wise woman who understands the world we're trying to shape. And Elizabeth, a lawyer and mother who understands the lives we're trying to live. Now, let me tell you what I know about John Kerry. I've been seeing all the Republican ads about him. Let me tell you what I know about him. During the Vietnam War, many young men, including the current president, the vice president, and me, could have gone to Vietnam and didn't. John Kerry came from a privileged background. He could have avoided going too, but instead, he said, "Send me." When they sent those swift boats up the river in Vietnam and they told them their job was to draw hostile fire, to wave the American flag and bait the enemy to come out and fight, John Kerry said, "Send me." And then, on my watch, when it was time to heal the wounds of war and normalize relations with Vietnam and to demand an accounting of the POWs and MIAs we lost there, John Kerry said, "Send me." Then, when we needed someone to push the cause of inner-city children struggling to avoid a life of crime, or to bring the benefits of high technology to ordinary Americans, or to clean the environment in a way that created new jobs, or to give small businesses a better chance to make it. John Kerry said, "Send me." So tonight, my friends, I ask you to join me for the next 100 days in telling John Kerry's story and promoting his ideas. Let every person in this hall and like-minded people all across our land say to him what he has always said to America: "Send me." The bravery that men who fought by his side in battle, that bravery they saw in battle, I have seen in politics. When I was president, John Kerry showed courage and conviction on crime, on welfare reform, on balancing the budget, at a time when those priorities were not exactly the way to win a popularity contest in our party. John Kerry took tough positions on tough problems. He knows who he is and where he's going. He has the experience, the character, the ideas, the values to be a great president. And in a time of change, he has two other very important qualities: an insatiable curiosity to understand the world around him, and a willingness to hear other views, even those who disagree with him. Therefore, John Kerry will make choices that reflect both conviction and common sense. He proved that when he picked John Edwards to be his partner. Now, everybody talks about John Edwards' energy and intellect and charisma. You know, I kind of resent him. But the important thing is not what talents he has, but how he has used them. He chose to use his talents to improve the lives of people like him who had to work for everything they've got, and to help people too often left out and left behind, and that's what he'll do as our vice president. Now, their opponents will tell you we should be afraid of John Kerry and John Edwards because they won't stand up to the terrorists. Don't you believe it? Strength and wisdom are not opposing values. They go hand in hand. They go hand in hand, and John Kerry has both. His first priority will be to keep America safe. Remember the scripture, "Be not afraid." John Kerry and John Edwards are good people with good ideas. Ideas to make the economy work again for middle-class Americans, to restore fiscal responsibility, to save Social Security, to make health care more affordable and college more available, to free us from dependence on foreign oil and create new jobs with clean energy and a cleaner environment, to rally the world to our side in the war against terror, and to make a world with more friends and less terror. My friends, at every turning point in our history, we, the people, have chosen unity over division, heeding our founders' call to America's eternal mission to form a more perfect union, to widen the circle of opportunity, deepen the reach of freedom, and strengthen the bonds of our community. It happened every time because we made the right choices. In the early days of the Republic, America was divided and at a crossroads, much as it is today. Deeply divided over whether or not to build a real nation with a national economy and a national legal system. We chose to build a more perfect union. In the Civil War, America was at another crossroads, deeply divided over whether to save the Union and end slavery. We chose a more perfect union. In the 1960s, when I was a young man, we were divided again over civil rights and women's rights. And again, we chose to form a more perfect union. As I said in 1992, I say again tonight, we are all in this together. We have an obligation both to work hard and to help our fellow citizens. An obligation both to fight terror and to build a world with more cooperation and less terror. Now again, it is time to choose. Since we're all in the same boat, we should choose a captain of our ship who is a brave, good man, who knows how to steer a vessel through troubled waters to the calm seas and the clear skies of our more perfect union. That is our mission. So let us join tonight and say to America in a loud, clear voice, send John Kerry. God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Patti LaBelle.
It's a new day.
So this first night of the Democratic National Convention comes to an end. There's much more convention coverage coming up on your local news on this CBS station. Tomorrow morning on the CBS Early Show, and tomorrow night on the CBS Evening News, and 24 hours a day at cbsnews.com. CBS will have primetime coverage Wednesday night at 10 Eastern Time when Senator John Edwards of North Carolina and the vice presidential nominee-to-be addresses the convention with his acceptance speech. And then we'll be back on the air Thursday night at 10 when Senator John Kerry delivers his acceptance speech. For now, for our CBS News convention team, Dan Rather reporting from Boston. Good night, everybody.
Watch live gavel-to-gavel coverage of the Democratic National Convention at cbsnews.com.